Do you believe that celebrities and public figures influence how society views relationships?
Yes and no. Yes, in that celebrities are given, in my judgment, an undue amount of public attention. We are in the kind of culture where life among celebrities that's depicted from movies and television and music and sports all get, for some reason that we could talk about, get defined as reality, when in fact we ought to know that it's not reality. And what people see in the media, what people see in movies, what they experience on the news, from the stories about the life and frailties of celebrities, tend to influence the way in which they think about their own lives. And so in that sense, given the attention that they get, yes. On the other hand, I say no, because when it gets down to it, I think most people understand the difference between the everyday life they live and what they see depicted among movie stars and television stars and sports stars and the like. And while they may engage in conversation as trivial, I think most people do not take that serious enough to believe that somehow their behavior mimics the behavior of people who have celebrity status. So yes and no.
Do you believe the side chick trend is new or just a modern day form of a mistress?
The side trick?
Side chick.
Chick, okay. I said trick, that's not Freudian. It's not new. It has always gone on. At least in my lifetime, there are many examples and episodes. Again, in entertainment, in politics, in public life in general. Now, I've always been concerned that the women who were involved, both the wives and the mistresses and the call girls and everybody, don't really stand forth to articulate where they are as women. They tend to subordinate themselves to the dominance of men on these kinds of questions. And we can take almost any case in point. All of the episodes of the politician who goes out and gets caught doing something that's put in the category of extramarital affairs, and the wife stands by him. All those cases in point where entertainers engage in those kinds of things as well. So it's always gone on. It seems that it is as much a part of the celebrity life. Whether we again talking about sports entertainment, or movie entertainment, or music entertainment, or political entertainment, because then they found out that's what politics is all about in this society too, or even news entertainment. So we are living in a leisure society, and those things that are leisure simply shapes the way in which people operate, no matter how they may espouse on certain virtues or values and what have you. In the last analysis, people are who they are. These are not mistakes. These are not moments in which someone wander into these places where they get caught with somebody that someone else presumes that they ought not be caught with. As I see it, this is just part of the culture of a leisure society.
Do you believe that the side chick trend has become more publicized?
Obviously, because we have a more expansive and more evasive media. Not only are we talking about the quote-unquote regular media of television, radio, magazines, newspapers still, books, but we also are talking about this animal now called social media, where indeed people voluntarily put their stuff out front so everybody can actually look at it. So again, I think this has a lot to do with the way in which societies that are capitalistic tend to make everything a commodity. anything that can actually be sold, they will indeed put it out there. The media will indeed buy it because it means in the final analysis money. If you think about the TMZ project, they're always out there on the hunt for something. All the shows, the reality shows and so forth, quote unquote reality shows. So there is a much broader media. There's much far more invasive media, and so given all the media out there and the outlets that people have, these kind of matters are inescapable in terms of what people actually have access to. And everyday people, if you have a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop or a PC, you can go out there and find whatever you want to find. It is there in some form or another.
Do you believe reality shows influence how families run their households?
Apparently, from what I hear people talk about, and in some ways, one could observe that that category of television called reality television has perhaps taken over where the old soap opera form used to dominate, and so at least I hear people talk about these reality shows in the same way that people who were soap opera heads talked about the soap operas when I was growing up on a daily basis. Now there are still soap operas out there on daytime television as well as nighttime television, but I think that in some ways what goes now as reality television has in many ways supplanted soap opera. So you have people talking about them, being concerned about the personalities there, feeling that they are part of the discourse that actually goes on. So yes, in so many ways, I think that it's had a great influence, and not necessarily in terms of enriching discourse, but in terms of spreading absurdity, exacerbating the kinds of issues that people think that are important. In the context of how they see problems and so forth every day in their own lives. It kind of muddles that so that they don't pay attention to those things that are real for them. A word that I like to use is that reality television has come to reify everyday life and make everyday life seems like it is not real, but what is real is what one sees on a television screen or what one sees on a computer screen.
Do you believe that if television shows demonstrated fidelity rather than promoting the side chick trend, do you believe there would be less acts of infidelity?
No, I don't, because again, I believe that the way in which our society, and certainly this culture that we call the American culture, I think the American culture is indeed very much a culture in which infidelity, marriage-tricious relationships, extramarital affairs, the kinds of things that you can put in the category of trust breaking, it's just part of the culture. And so it wouldn't matter, and it hasn't mattered, because we can go back long before this era here and see some of these same things, just that they were not as widely talked about. They were not as media focused or as media centric as they are now. But they've always gone on, and there are some episodes that have been more more pronounced than others. But this is not anything new.
Do you believe that affairs committed by public figures such as Bill Clinton and celebrities such as Dwayne Wade affect society?
No, because in America, one can always reinvent oneself. So Bill Clinton is now a revered ex-president who's been called upon by the current president and other people around the world to come and hold forth and to stand as a statesman. Dwayne Wade as a celebrity person in professional sports. Clearly, apparently has a woman who has decided that none of what he does, none of what has been reported that he does, affects the way in which she sees him. And so it is all for me trivia. It is all for me it all represents what I call this age of absurdity, and so you really cannot take any of this stuff serious. So when I look at a Bill Clinton or a Dwayne Wade or anyone else who we can put into those categories based upon their affairs, their relationships, I don't see anything special going on. So there are people who in fact would love to emulate a Bill Clinton or a Dwayne Wade. There are people who would love to have a woman like Gabrielle Union, who apparently doesn't mind that he has engaged in those things he has engaged in. She wants to marry him, and they are now planning a wedding. So clearly, the commentary for me says more about the women in their lives than it does them. That is, it says more about the frailty of a Hillary Clinton or Gabrielle Union than it does a Bill Clinton or a Dwayne Wade.
Do you believe that infidelity can affect people differently by their ethnic background or by their culture?
Well, there have been some studies which indeed show this, not only in terms of ethnic differeces, but also racial differences and certainly class differences. But if one assumes that that there's a set of values that people acquire because they are born into a certain ethnic group, or they are born into a certain racial group, or within a class, that those values would tend to hold, depending upon who they actually end up marrying, and those values will indeed carry through. There are some studies that indeed suggest that some of that may be valid, but the culture that we're talking about, and not just in this country, but also the world culture, is a mass culture now. And the way in which people come to define themselves in cultural terms, regardless of ethnicity and race and gender, the way in which people come to define themselves in cultural terms, the markers and the receptors that they indeed identify and use to do the defining is a mass culture, and the mass culture is indeed very emblematic of what people are expected to indeed do, what they are expected to, how they are expected to behave. And again, if you live in a culture where you can reinvent yourself, where you can be contrite, you can ask somebody to forgive you. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go and do it again. Because after all, you can be contrite again, and you can ask somebody to forgive you again. That's the way the culture has indeed turned out. So while there may be some studies out there that indeed show those differences, I think in the final analysis, these things are defined at a mass level, regardless of ethnic group, race, gender, class.
So do you believe that economics are a factor when it comes to infidelity?
Well, certainly economics come into play, because if you are a married person and you decide to engage in an extramarital affair, and then you have to organize your monetary or economic resources to make all those things happen, to take care of your household, as well as expending the kind of money that you need to expend to maintain your affair. So certainly economics is a major factor in that. But I do not necessarily know, nor do I think that one makes a decision about having an extramarital affair or engaging in some sort of meretriciousness based upon one assessing one's economic wherewithal to in fact do that. Those things usually start with matters less than about economics and more about affairs of the heart. How someone feels about someone else, and therefore the way in which one wants to respond to those feelings. They may not have anything to do with how one sees one's economic situation or what one's economic situation in fact might be at that particular time.
Do you believe that education would be a factor on infidelity?
It certainly could be, like the economic piece. But we know that people who have affairs do so regardless of what their educational attainment level might be. These studies may show that people who are more highly educated, who therefore may have access to more resources for leisure, may indeed do that more than people who are not highly educated and who don't have as much access to resources for leisure. Studies might indeed show that, but I think that cuts across all educational levels. We know, for example, that many of the women who indeed caught in these affairs, who are the mistresses and the girlfriends, are not necessarily at the same level economically as these people. You can think about somebody like a Tiger Woods, for example, who, according to what was reported, all the women that he dealt with were people who worked in minimum wage jobs as waitresses and so forth at restaurants and that sort of thing. Tiger Woods is a $1 billion athlete. So clearly, and of course he went to Stanford University. And if you think about somebody like a Bill Clinton, who is a Yale law graduate, a governor, a president, most of the women that he dealt with were not women who were as well endowed educationally as he was. So, clearly one set of studies might show that people who have indeed acquired a certain education attainment, who have acquired a certain status, who have acquired a certain job, may be more prone because they have access to those resources that indeed make more leisure possible. But that doesn't mean they're going to go out there and get a woman who's at the same levels as them. So that answer could be yes and no. My guess would be that clearly it doesn't come to play when the decision is made as to whether or not a man who wants to deal with a woman, regardless of her education status, would indeed not do that because he believes that she's not at the level that he's at. I don't think people make those kinds of decisions on that basis. I think it comes down to basic, sexual instinct, and what one is attracted to. So,
I'm Avi'Yam Jordan with Dr. Rick Hill for How Do Celebrities and Public Figures Influences How Society Views Relationships.
Okay.